Welcome to another episode of the Wolf and the Doctor podcast. I'm your host, Dr. John Devereaux, along with my co-host, Mr. Glenn Curry. And once again, we got a special guest today.
Yeah, I'm very excited for today. Today is one of my favorite guests. She's a longtime friend of mine, author and writer, Miss Tempestt Aisha.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
And we're glad to have you, as Glenn said. And what we do is we always start off the podcast with the quote of the week. So the quote of the week comes from none other than yourself. What I always do is I go through people's Facebook and their Instagram and try to find good quotes. So one of the quotes that you had on your page is "Do it with passion or not at all." Now, in the past couple of episodes, we've been talking about how individuals are able to take their passion and turn it into their profession, or use their passion to kind of fuel some of the things that they're into. So with that, what did you mean behind that quote, "Do it with passion or not at all"?
I feel like the things that we do, like 100%, are the things that we are absolutely passionate about. And if you're not going to do it 100%, then just don't do it. Just like let it go. So that's really what I meant by that. Just like do it with your all, or just like leave it behind, because like don't just give 50% of anything.
Absolutely. And I think that when it comes to like anything that you do, especially, starting anything off, you want to make sure that you give it your all, because at the end of the day, that's all you really got. And if you're passionate, if you're serious about anything in life, you got to go 100%.
So, I agree with both of you guys. I think once you're passionate about something, it does help you, especially during those times when you don't want to do something. Like, I'm pretty sure we're going to get to this point where sometimes as a creative, you have to force yourself to do things that you're not really, wanting to do at a particular time. We always try to see how individuals got on the path to the profession that they are currently. So first off, can you tell us a little bit about what you do? What's your occupation?
So my 9 to 5 is I'm a content developer. So I'm still dealing with content. Of course, it's not creatively. However, just like working with content, just like words and putting those things together is definitely a huge passion of mine, has always been. So going into writing books, it just kind of ended up being like a natural progression from there.
Yeah, so with being the content creator, putting things together and, making something from nothing and creating this story in a sense, right? What was the path for you now to become a writer? Has that kind of always intertwined?
So I've always had a super like vivid and just like thorough imagination, just like always growing up. Initially as a child, I didn't know I wanted to go into writing though. It wasn't until I was about 11 or 12 in 7th grade where I was like, oh, I'm going to be a writer. And I've never changed my mind from there. However, what I wanted to write has drastically changed to an extent. I initially wanted to go into writing like short stories when I was younger. And from there, I decided I wanted to go into magazine writing, which is still a little dream of mine. And then like my last year of undergrad is when I started getting these random ideas, and it kind of just like blossomed from there into an entire book series.
So with that, tell us a little bit about your book series. So how many books have you written, and what genre?
All right, so I write children's books, and they are fiction. I have 7 books that are currently out and published. However, I only have 5 that are a part of the Maddy Series. The other 2 are a part of like a little affirmation series, I call it. They're just like affirmation books for boys, and then I have another one for girls. But the Maddy Series, a 5-book series, it's, like I said, just for children. It's all fiction. They're short picture books, and all of them are just like super lighthearted about family and friends, and they typically have a lesson in them. So that's kind of my thing, just giving you a little lesson, throwing some creativity with some vibrant colors. I can only write for children because my attention span is extremely short. I need to write for that market, because I'm like, if it can catch my attention, then I know it can catch theirs. Like, I can't write for adults, not my market.
Gotcha.
So one thing that I took from what you just said, Temp, is that you said you knew early on that you wanted to become a writer, and it just stuck with you. And I think that's how you could tell that you're really passionate about something, that, you know, that desire doesn't dissipate over time. And our last guest that we had, Pam, when she was talking about like her purpose, she said she knew she wanted to be a city planner early on as well, because as a girl, she would just look and, you know, just be naturally inquisitive about the city and like how things were built. So I thought that was very interesting just as a tie-in. You know, there's like some consistency with walking in your purpose, and that does start and you're able to kind of identify it at an early age.
Yes. So I think initially, of course, I didn't know that it was going to be my passion. Like I said, I've always had just like this crazy imagination. As a child, I had like an imaginary dog for way too many years. Like, so I feel like things started there. Like I had this imaginary dog, and then eventually I became afraid of the imaginary dog. And it's just like, my family's like, how do you be afraid of something you created? So
Yeah.
creating stories has always been like a secret, like passion of mine. But as a child, of course, you don't know that it's a passion. And I think with my parents, while they were always supportive, when you have a writer in your home, you don't really know how to foster that, because once again, I wasn't necessarily a writer. I was just like creating these stories in my head. You don't know how to foster that. It's not like, oh, she's athletic, or oh, she dances. Like, you know for a fact, oh, okay, my child has rhythm, put them in a dance class. Like writing is just like such a different avenue. So it wasn't necessarily fostered initially, but you have to write in school. So by the time I became in seventh grade, it was just like, oh, I have a little something here. Yeah, once again, I did not stray away from it. Um, my mom used to joke with me and say, get you a degree in something that you can feed yourself with. Like, what is a journalism degree gonna do? So, and even telling me that, I was like, if I don't go to school for journalism, I'm not gonna enjoy school. I'm gonna not make it. I'm not gonna make it. So I just knew early on that that was my passion. And as an adult, I realized how to tie that passion to my purpose. I realized they were connected with each other, because I feel like everything that we're passionate about is not always going to be our purpose. And I realized that mine were connected. They were, tied together.
And I think oftentimes we don't understand, people don't really take in consideration like what an author goes through, or, whatever career path you take, what type of challenges and adversity that you face, right, when trying to pursue this dream. So for you, I mean, what were some of those challenges that you face as an author?
Well, I don't know another author personally. So I had to do so much research. I didn't have like this mentor that was directly connected to me that I could reach out to and say, hey, I want to write a book. How do I go about doing X, Y, and Z? So basically I had to use Google and YouTube. Those are my mentors, so to speak. And I had to figure out how to make my story a book, something I could touch, something I could look at and feel and make real. So some of the challenges initially were just that this is my first time doing this. I have no one else to look to directly. But writing is what comes extremely natural to me. So the writing and the creating that part was not hard, or is never hard for me at all. It's basically the production and everything that comes after I've written the story. So from the marketing, or figuring out printing, and figuring out how do I get the best return on my investment, because it's definitely an investment. Anything you have to create, it's gonna cost you. So whether it is in time, it's in money, like I had to figure out how to get the most back from all of that I had put into it. So that's
And
probably the hardest thing. Everything that comes after writing the books.
okay, yeah. So oftentimes, when you think about an author, right? I've seen plenty of movies of like authors, and when they're trying to go through their creative process, sometimes they go through writer's block. Has that something that you've been faced with?
I don't think I necessarily experienced writer's block, because my method is that I write when I feel it. I don't try to force it. I hear a lot of writers say, write every day, write every day. Every day I don't feel like writing, and that's just me being honest about it. I don't have something to write every single day. I don't have a story every day that I'm putting down on paper. So I write when I feel it, which makes that process just so much easier for me. And I had to realize what environments I thrive in creatively. I had to figure out what inspires me.
That's important too, because he just hearing you talk about writing is just reminding me of like I don't like writing personally, And writing a dissertation is probably one of the most tedious things. So when I hear like you talk about like, getting into, not necessarily like, if you said everybody says to just write daily, but you have to really feel it.
You have to get in
Like, do you
your zone,
have,
find your zone and get in there. Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
So for me to get in my zone, I used to always, and my wife will probably laugh. I used to always have to go get my same hoodie. I'll put the hoodie on, tie it real tight,
Oh my gosh.
and then
It sweats. I have to be like, I'm just like such a bum when I'm writing. Like, it's nothing cute.
yeah, okay. At least I'm not alone there, because that was my whole process. It's like you have to mentally and physically sometimes just prepare yourself for writing. So you said you have like a creative process like that as well. I'm sure the environment plays a big part, but what else goes into fostering that atmosphere for you to be able to write successfully?
So, I mean, like you said, I'm dressed like a bum basically when I'm writing. And the other odd thing about me is I can only write books in the summertime.
Wow.
I do not like cold weather. And so like my brain is just like, just turned off creatively in the colder months. I basically write all of my books in the summertime and I release them in the fall, promote in winter. So I have a whole little situation happening.
Mhm.
So yeah, right in the summertime, I write the best when I'm outdoors, typically near water. So I've written my book sometimes on vacations. I vacation like the summers at Martha's Vineyard. I've written a lot of books there, just like out by the ocean. Or even when I'm at home, I'll go like to the Riverwalk in my neighborhood right there. I'm just sitting there, just like in a pile of papers and notebooks, like
Right.
looking like I probably like somebody probably wants to come and drop some money in a hat for me. But it's like that's just like my creative space. Now I'm just like completely tapped in, zoned in. Like my phone is on do not disturb, but I don't write in complete silence. I don't like complete silence. So whether it's the people walking by or their conversations or like music I have on or even if it's a podcast, I have to hear something. So it's like super unconventional. It's probably a little weird, and I'm okay because it works.
And it's like everybody does have like their own individual process, I think, when it does come to writing, and it's not, one size fits all. Like, so the way that you write is probably not going to be the way that another author writes.
Not at all.
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting though, just to kind of know your process though.
Yeah. And then I guess the real question would be, right? So for you, Tim, right? So you finally, got into your creative space. You got everything rolling and you all set, right? You finally get that first book out there. You excited. I mean, how has that really changed like the process of your writing?
The
Like
process itself
yeah.
stays the same for the most part. Even after the first book was done, the process stays the same. I did a lot of just comparing my first book to what I was working on after that. Um, because I was like, okay, how do I make this better? Or how do I, make sure that my character just continues to develop and not, I didn't want to stray away from the essence of my main character.
Mhm.
But yeah, the process itself basically stays the same. It was just about how do I make this better? How do I keep a 6-year-old captivated by this story?
So let's talk about that character. So that 6-year-old Maddie. So
Yeah.
where did the inspiration for Maddie come from? And then what prompted you to make it a series? Because you said you have 5 books, rather than just a standalone book.
It was initially just one book. I had no intentions. It was just like, oh, get this idea out of my head onto paper, make it real, and be done. I had no intentions of being a children's author or just making this an entire series. It was just this one-off book, and I was just going to be done. But that is not how my brain was working. Maddie just like kept living on in my head. But once again, she does not stem from anybody. She's not about me, not about anybody. Um, I think when you're just like super creative and you just have that crazy imagination that you end up seeing things in your head or just like weird characters and you bring them to life. So yeah, it sound like I said, sounds crazy, but yes, I don't write about anyone I know. I purposely use names that are of people I don't know because I don't want anyone to like feel like, oh, this is about me, or because I have a 7-year-old niece. She'll be 8 next week, and everyone is like, "Is Maddie about your niece?" And I was like, "Nope, it's not about anyone." I do have one of my books though that was based off an idea that I did have as a child. And my second book is called Breakfast Surprise. Maddie and her grandmother are cooking, and the egg, like her grandparents live on a farm. They go to crack an egg for breakfast, and a chick comes out. And it was also always based off this weird idea I had as a kid, like how do farmers know which eggs have a yolk and which eggs have a chick? So that's like the only that was based off something I've personally thought. Everything else was just like random ideas that just came to my head that I just knew I had to bring to life.
There's something that you put on your Facebook page, I believe, and you said that of all the children's books published, whether that's traditionally or independent, only 11% as of 2019 have a black character in it. So, what inspired you to share the stories that you decide to tell and making sure that representation is evident in the books that you create?
Yes, so I definitely believe that in 2020, like we're just in like such a crazy time, so you feel like the world is so like progressive and like we've like made such a huge impact as just like people of color, and then you realize that it's just not reflected in our books. So I wanted to be that for, this upcoming generation. I wanted to give them something that made them feel like this is normal, not like it's an anomaly, it's normal. So, and I was also noticing that a lot of books that have like main characters that are black or brown kids, it was always to tell them like, oh, you're beautiful, oh, you're smart. It was only to give them encouragement. I felt the need to create a series that showed black and brown kids just being kids. Like white kids have those books and those stories all the
Right.
time. Like
Yeah.
we're born dope. We don't need books that only tell us, oh, your hair is nice, your skin is beautiful. Like we know this. Show me a kid, be a kid.
Right.
I'm just like, they have books with, whether it's white characters or animals, and they're just living and just being normal. However, we have to be, picked out and shown like this is something like, oh my gosh, like we didn't know you existed. Like, no, we've always been here. And our kids need to realize that these books and these characters, they're normal. They live life. They're just like them. So that was my biggest thing, to show that representation as just kids being kids in books and make it normal.
Yeah, you know what? That's awesome. Especially for me, I got a 4-year old. She just turned 4, literally on Friday. So, it's important to show that representation, in books, because I love reading books and I love to show her characters that kind of remind her of herself, right? But for someone like my daughter who might be aspiring to be an author, by reading your book or seeing your story or something like that, what is some of the advice that you'll give to them?
My advice is just to be who you are. Like,
Yeah.
don't try to alter who you are. Don't alter your mold, your specific design of, your who you are to fit anyone's ideas or expectations or anything else. Be you and be completely comfortable in that. Like I said, I do so many things that are like extremely weird or just abnormal, and I'm okay with that. So it's just be comfortable in who you are, whether it's being an author, a dancer, or you're a scientist. Just be who you are and be completely comfortable in that, and don't let anyone deter you from what you want to do. So that's just my biggest thing, just as an author, to inspire other kids to be who they are, whether it is an author or not.
And why do you feel it's so important that we kind of reinforce the notion that it's okay to be who you are? Because I think, we live in this society where everybody's on Instagram or social media, and there's the
Yeah.
perception that you're supposed to hold. But why do you think it's so important to just be who you are, and, just telling, like you said in your book series, key is just being themselves. Like, why is that so important to you?
I just feel like it's important because my parents just always let me know that I am special. No one was designed to fit in. We're all designed to be different. So it's just like, stop trying to be something because that's what you see on social media or you see on TV or you see in, magazines. It's like, don't try to fit something because in real life, they aren't fitting a specific mold either. They are who they are. So it's like, live for you because at the end of the day, people are going to talk about you whether you do it their way or your own way. So it's like, at least you can do is be happy.
Right.
Yeah.
So I did have a follow up question. Once again about the representation, because you have one book in particular where it's like he's not special, he's my friend. So where did the inspiration for that come from? Because once again, and actually let me let you tell us what's the premise of that book.
Okay, so my main character, Maddie, ends up meeting these twins that move next door, Denver and Diesel. They're a boy and a girl, fraternal twins. And Diesel, the brother, is deaf. And so, I mean, Maddie is just like, she automatically gravitates towards them. You know, kids don't see differences. They know that, okay, this is my friend, this person is nice, let's play. And eventually they go to school and the teacher tries to sing a lot of difference, like, oh, we have a kid in our class that's different. And Maddie's like, he's just like me. Like, so I mean, the main premise about it is not even that he's different or that he has, a special need. The main premise was that like I said, all my books have a message. So the main one was you're never too old to learn and you're never too young to teach.
Mm.
So it's just about
Man.
being inclusive, being accepting, because at the end of the day, everyone is different. You just have to figure out what their differences are. And you either rock with it or you don't.
And I think that's important. And because, well, one, personally, I do have a child who has special needs. So it is great to see those stories that are being written to once again show that representation. So I know that we'll be ordering that book just to kind of read to him. So it's good to start seeing people being intentional about getting that information out, because like you said, a lot of kids don't really notice the differences. You know, we as the parents and as the adults, we're like, okay, well, this needs to be adapted. But, kids just want to play. Like you said, like all the kids, like Glenn's daughter, when she's playing with our son, JJ, they just the best friends, they don't, they just don't recognize those differences. But, kids just want to be kids. But it's important, I think, to get those stories out there, not only for the kids, but for the parents as well.
Really for the parents, honestly, because like I said, kids don't care. It's when I feel like as a parent, when you're reading this book or when you go to purchase this book for your child, you're like, oh, okay. It just gives you as an adult a different perspective. Like I have a goddaughter and she's autistic. She's nonverbal, but she's the sweetest kid. Like all she wants to do is play, get some hugs, and eat a popsicle. Like she can vibe with any kid. It's adults that'll look at her or try to figure out what's wrong. There's nothing wrong. She's just different.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Well, for stories like that, right? I mean, how do you, once you come up with them, how do you kind of get them out there to the general public? Like, what is that? Because you self-publish most of your work, right? How do you get that material out there to the world?
So I work with a printing company, and they also allow for like mass distribution. So stores can decide to pick up my books and put them, on their website in their stores. So like right now, my series go at Barnes and Noble and Walmart and Target and a few other major retailers. So it's basically up to them to decide to grab my book. But other than that, I just do a lot of social media marketing and just word of mouth, or ask people if they bought a book to leave a review, whether it's on Amazon or through my website. But marketing is definitely one of the hardest things as an author that I have encountered. So, like lately, I've taken a slight hiatus from writing and I've purchased 2 different marketing courses because, like I said, you have to invest in yourself, not just in the book, but in the entire process if you want to do it 100%.
What I love about these conversations that we're having with individuals is there's a lot of information that just from the last episode that you're talking about, like now, one of the things that we talked about last week with Pam when we were talking about or discussing purpose was, investing in yourself. And that's what it seems like you're doing with those courses. You're teaching yourself, and as an entrepreneur, it's constantly requires you to invest in yourself and learn new tricks and trades. Which part of the overall process of being an author do you love the most?
I think, of course, the writing part, like the random ideas that come to my head, because they definitely come randomly. I've like been out at dinner, like on a date, and I'll end up writing on a napkin. I see something, I'm like, oh wait, where's something at? I'm like looking for a pen, like I said, I've written on a napkin before, random envelopes, like whatever I can in that moment. I'm like, I have to get this out. Like I've like had to wake up out of my sleep and like type in my notes really quickly. Like, so I think that's like the weirdest, but definitely probably my favorite part, just that things come to me randomly. And I'm okay with that. I love post-its. Like I write little notes or I eventually have to put, 50 post-it notes together. I'm like, oh, here is my book. Like and post-its and napkins. That's my favorite part. Super unconventional, but love it.
So I remember when I was, working a 9 to 5 and, trying to become like a full-time realtor entrepreneur. I mean, Tempest, you and I work together. So, I used to talk about this all the time. Like, one day I'm going to become a, full-time entrepreneur and, I'm going to go into business for myself. With you, holding 9 to 5 and, writing on the side, how do you balance the two?
It's definitely a challenge because I don't even consider my writing to be something on the side. I feel like
Mm.
I'm like full time at both, especially in
Wow.
the summertime, like I said, because that's when I usually am writing the most.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it's definitely hard. And at one point, I was not only writing, but I was shipping out my own books, taking in those orders. I designed my own website. Like it's been a one man show. And like, well, my parents relocated, but before they relocated, my dad used to help me with like shipping things out. Like, I've had, I've had the guy day. He's like been shipping things out, or he's been on, emergency assistant duty. So people around me that will definitely help me, which is awesome. But for the most part, it's definitely just been challenging to figure it all out. I heard someone mention like, oh, I need 8 hours of sleep. I was like, 8. It's some days I'm like, I just get like a 2 hour nap and I have to get up and finish working. So it's just figuring out what's important at that time. I mean, when it comes to my 9 to 5, I prioritize those projects. And especially now working from home, it gives me a little bit more flexibility, which is great. But I just try to take the most advantage of my entire day. Like I try to multitask at all times. Like as long as I can, I try to do like two things at a time.
And I
Which
mean, I think that's
insane. But yeah, that's the life of an entrepreneur. You have to figure it all out.
Yeah.
And when you are like I said, passionate about it, that begins to fuel, that gives you that fuel to keep moving and to keep going.
yeah, it's
Absolutely.
real important to have a village, with you that can support you in your endeavors. Like I know Glenn and I both have did photography,
Yeah.
and I know at the last minute I used to have to pull my wife and be like, "Yo, can you come help me, with this event?" And I'm sure Glenn has done the
Hmm.
same. But
Yeah.
as a author, especially like for a children's book, how did you go about the process of, even finding like an illustrator, someone who you trusted their artistic vision with your, your content?
Yeah.
Now, this one is probably the craziest, most outrageous story. But so, like I said, I don't know an author personally. So
Yeah.
everything I was doing was Google, YouTube, trying to figure it out. And initially, my thought was to connect with someone that was maybe like, building a portfolio that was like maybe in college. I was thinking like, oh, okay, I'm gonna see if I can grab a student at Columbia and connect with them. We build this up together. And that was my initial thought. Get someone that was, considered like an underdog or a beginner that was building a portfolio that would be willing to work with me. I ended up on a few like freelancer websites. You know how they have like Upwork or
Yeah.
like
Fiverr.
yeah,
Fiverr.
like
Yeah.
so I ended up on a few websites similar to those, and I contacted maybe like 3 to 5 who had samples that I thought I could vibe with, and one of them stood out the most to me, and she lives in Ukraine. I've never laid eyes on her in my life.
Wow.
Somehow, I think I gave her an idea and I asked for a sample of like Maddie's bedroom. So I'm very hands-on in my illustration process, and I don't think most authors are. I design basically everything from what I want her hair, her emotions, her outfits. I send like outfit designs and everything over. So I described this bedroom of a 6-year-old girl. I sent the idea to her and she brought it to life. And I was like, oh, this is gonna be it. And my parents are like, are you really gonna send money, like this amount of money through Western Union to a person you don't know? And in that moment, I was also, when I first started writing, I was still living at home. I could risk way more than what now. So I was like, yeah, it's no big deal. I'm like, I'm fine. Like I was like, and this just feels right. In that moment, I had one of those scare money, don't make money that type of feelings.
Yeah.
And I was like, just send the money off. And if it works, we're good. If it doesn't work, lesson learned. And it works. Like I do not want to work with another illustrator. She is amazing to work with, and I love my illustrations. Like any mistakes or anything I've disliked within any of my books has never been her fault. It's usually been like me or printing. So we just work so well together. She's like always right in my head. But yeah, I use freelance websites, and that's how we connected.
So what's the ultimate goal for you? I mean, the next 5, 10 years with the series.
Um, so as of right now, the Maddie series is complete. 5 books, and I want to focus on just making these books basically as big as like Dr. Seuss books.
Okay.
I just want to be like classic books, household names, and just everyone, just super in love with Maddie and the stories. Um, I don't know. I have so many ideas. I want this to be like an entire educational brand because I'm really big on literacy and
Mm.
education. But children also realizing that even if you aren't good at the math and science, maybe you're creative and just like foster that and build that. So I want an app. I want a clothing line. I want eventually more books. Eventually, like on my, long-term dreams, long-term goals, I want this to be like a mini series or something like, like Arthur or Dragon Tales, like things we used to watch back in the
Yeah.
day. So
Right.
I
Yeah.
want this like on TV. I want it everywhere. And once again, it's not even about the money for me. It's about the passion and just like my messages behind the books and just like my message with how I live my life. So I'm creative and I'm cool with being me, and I want kids to feel the same way.
So,
And I mean that's really good. And you were talking about how working from home for your 9 to 5 has allowed you a little bit more flexibility in terms of your writing. But as a author for like children's series, I'm assuming you get a lot of your promotion out of going to those classrooms and reading those books to those students, or have library signings. So how has the pandemic helped you to kind of shift your focus in certain areas in the way that you do promote your business, or not your business but your book series?
So once again, the courses I'm taking in marketing, that's like helping with that because everyone has to take a major pivot with everything that's going on. However, I have been able to do a few, the classes are still going on through like Zoom or Google Meet. So I've gone on and done a few virtual readings,
oh,
which is
Wow.
because I'm so used to, kids like all in my face and group hugs, and we get a chance to like interact on a different level. And some classrooms are just run differently than others. Some classrooms, they have all the kids on mute because, of course, kids will be like super loud. And then I'm just reading and I don't get a chance to feed off that energy. I super
Mm.
love the energy of a energetic and busy 5-year-old.
yeah.
So I'm just like, I don't really get that vibe all the time. But then other classrooms, they're allowed to, be off mute and ask their questions and, whether they're raising their hand or whatever the case is. So I get a chance to do that. So I've still been able to interact with some classrooms and read my books, which is exciting. I have friends that are teachers and they have their schools order my books. So they're still in circulation, which is great. But once again, when it comes to marketing and promoting them, it's a major pivot, and I have to rely on social media more, which sometimes can be hard because I can be shy. And sometimes it's just like, do I really want to post this 5 times in a day, or do I want to post this every single day? So, like, yeah, but I'm learning.
So when you're in your creative space, right? I know when you look at people that produce movies, they never want to see other people's movies or see their own movie after it's been created. For you, what is that process like? Do you go back and look at your own or read your own material, or do you get your inspiration from other authors?
All right, so I mean, as an author, especially for children, I have to go back and read my own books because I end up reading to classrooms or at libraries and things like that. So I have to read it, and I always read it when I first get it in the mail. I always order a test copy, so I have to go through and make sure that there are no mistakes, last minute mistakes, or things that get caught. So I eventually have to go back and read my work plenty of times, like a million times, like I said, because I'm reading to kids in classrooms and things like that. However, in my initial process, I think that's maybe something that all artists and authors do, that they don't want to accidentally soak in information from other, artists. So I don't read any additional like books. Like usually I don't read any fiction when I'm writing because I just feel like all good art can accidentally inspire you. So it's like, let me stay away from, Dr. Seuss or J.K. Rowling or, whoever else is out there because I want my book to be special and, just like stand out on its own and not be compared to someone else that's done something similar. So I think that's probably something that all artists and authors just like have in common, that we don't want to ever be accused of replicating someone else's work. So it's like, let me just stay away until I'm done. However, when I did start my very first book, I did read a million children's books and did like lots of research on just like other children's books because I wanted to make sure that my story was going to be just different and not necessarily stand out, because people feel like when it comes to kids books, it's going to be the same story told a million different ways, whether it's like a human or an animal, like they're just going to tell the same story. But I wanted to see if my idea at the time had already been published or something similar.
And I remember watching this video from one of my favorite directors, it's Christopher Nolan, and he said that exact same thing. Like for him, he loves spy movies, and he said, but when he was making that in the Tenet film, that he refused to watch any of like those old James Bond movies because subconsciously that stuff can just kind of seep into your memory, and
Yeah.
it could come out in your work. So it's interesting how a lot of authors or creatives have that same process where they try to distance themselves at least from the same target genre, just to
Yeah.
make sure that they're not replicating or duplicating somebody else's work. Just really quick, because I was just reminded of a quote that tied into something that you said earlier, and it's by Maya Angelou, where she said, "There's no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you." Like when you get the conception for some of these stories, like do you just have to get it out like right then and there, or start that process, or like what happens when you get these ideas in your head? I know you said like you write them down, like when you're on dates on napkins and things like that, but
Um, so I 100% agree with that quote. She's the GOAT, of course. So yeah, because it's there, and my memory is also really bad also. So I have to write it down in that moment. I won't remember. Um, I usually have to, until the thought is complete in my head, I have to hear, like, I can't hear anything. So I'm always right there like, wait, wait, don't talk. It's a lot because, like I said, when you were born to do something, you not doing it, it's going to bother you. You're not going to be happy. You're going to feel like something is just there. It has to be released. So I 100% agree, and I resonate with a quote like that because I have to get those thoughts out of my head onto paper, and just seeing it once it's complete and published, it's just like such a fulfilling like emotion. So I love it.
So when you get all of these thoughts together and start to organize things, I mean, are you writing them down as far as like on like Word doc? I mean, are you bringing all the napkins from the dates together? I mean, like what's happened? I mean, what type of like software are you using, or kind of keeping you organized in that aspect?
After I bring all the random pieces of paper and napkins together, I write it down. I cannot just automatically start typing. I have to write it down first, see it, and then I start to type. Because sometimes I realize that, oh, these random pieces of paper, it's not the complete story. At one point, I had like a beginning of a story and an ending. I had no middle.
Wow.
So I'm here like I need to figure this out. Or I usually start my stories off with like, what is my problem and what is my solution? So sometimes I'll have my problem and I'll have my solution, but how did my character get there? So it's like I'm missing my middle piece. So I'll have to realize, like, okay, let me sit down and write this out and let me figure this out. Let me see what I'll actually have. And then I start to type. After I type it, I do a few rounds of editing and then I send it off to my illustrator for us to build a storyboard.
So, because you are an editor as well,
I am.
so do you edit your own work?
Okay, so initially I was 100% against editing my own work because you feel like you're never done. Like a painter is always going to want to add one final touch. It's always something that needs to be fixed. However, I paid for someone to edit my book. One of my books, like second or third one. I paid for them to edit my book and I found so many mistakes.
Wow.
That's like maybe I should just do this on my own. I just have to like remove myself from it. Like this is not my baby anymore. Like let me just look at this with like stranger eyes. And I'm able to do that now. I do have another series I'm working on that'll probably be out within the next maybe 2 years. And that one I will not edit. So, but yeah, I feel like with the Maddie series, I was able to step back and realize like, okay, and some things, some like typical like grammar rules or English rules, I break
Yeah.
intentionally.
Mm.
And I feel like because it is my work, I know what I want there on purpose and I know what I don't want there. So
Mm.
it works for me now. So
Right.
yeah,
That
but
that's
typically I
good.
don't suggest anyone to edit their own work. I just took a chance on myself because I realized that maybe everybody else can't catch everything.
That's important though.
Right.
That's important because I think like as an author, I'm sure you know how you want the story to be told, and
Yeah.
you can send it off to an editor who may misinterpret, the intentionality in some of the things that you're doing, and think of that as like you said, those grammar errors or whatever it might be. So I just know for like myself, like when I'm writing, like I get to a point where I'm just tired of seeing and reading those words that like I refuse to edit my own work.
Well, when you're writing the kids' books, right, are you intentionally trying to take the tone of a child or just more so of a storyteller?
Of a storyteller, definitely, because I mean, if a kid is gonna tell a story, it's probably gonna say like, and then or like it probably won't make sense that well either, but I just want them to be engaged and not lose attention from the story. I just try to write it as a great storyteller and just, with a lot of inflection on what should be and for so they can feel the emotion. So I just want the whole package when they are reading or being read those stories.
And you mentioned earlier that you typically write a lot better in the summertime, when you're on vacation or buy some water or something like that. So, what's normally like the time frame, for aspiring writers, just have like, a benchmark or a reference. Like, what's normally the time frame from the inception of the idea to when you have it published and ready to ship out? Like, how long does that process take?
I mean, that varies dramatically because my first book probably took me a couple of years to actually get completed because once around I was like playing around and procrastinating with the idea. Like I said, I didn't have the intentions initially to be an author of children's books. So it was something I was playing around with, and the thoughts were just like here and there and just like random. I wasn't being serious about it. So that one did take me a few years to actually get from the thought to a physical book. Whereas after that, when I decided to make it a series, I had the premise of the next four books after my first book. So writing them came way easier. So
Mm.
my very first book came out in 2017. And I mean, since then I've written like six more. So
So
that's what I'm
yeah.
saying. But I don't ever want to put my ridiculous standards or what I've done on anyone else because it may take you 3 years to write a book, and that's fine. You can probably get it done in 3 months, and that's fine also. But like I said, I already have the premise for the next ones. Everyone doesn't get their, their idea that quickly. And that's why I say don't force it, because if it's a forced story, it may not be as good.
On one of the previous episodes, Glenn talked about the importance of networking, to build like your brand and, get your products and stuff out there. As an author, what type of people or groups are you looking to network with to ultimately, get the success in your Maddy series and your future books as well?
So I do enjoy hanging around creatives, but I think the people that I would love to network the most with right now are the people that are way more business minded than I am, because I know that's not what comes natural to me. So being around people that don't have knowledge that I have is basically what I would just like, good vibes, good energy, and just more knowledge, because I don't necessarily need to be around only people that only do what I do, because I
Mhm.
feel like I would grow from that. Like, it's fun, it's exciting, it can be inspiring, but I'm just looking for lots of knowledge right now. So just trying to soak all of that in. And I mean, I've been really, really blessed to be surrounded by some amazing people, just like whether they're entrepreneurs or just like I hang around a lot of older people as well.
Yeah.
I get a chance to get just like so much knowledge, which is great. They were like, this is what I did. It didn't work. You might not want to try this. So, that works also. So I just love being around just positivity and people that are willing to share knowledge that I don't already have.
That's funny. It reminds me of this quote that says, like, a smart man or woman learns from their own mistakes, but a wise man or woman learns from the mistakes of others. Which is
Yes.
why it is
Mm,
important to kind of surround yourself around the individuals who have gone through the process
Absolutely.
and
yeah.
have found, trial by fire, what worked and what didn't work, and they are able to pass that knowledge along, to you and others who are looking to do what you're doing.
Obviously, Tempest, your journey has not been, the typical route, right, per se. You had a lot of bumps, bruises along the way, as I always like to say. I mean, for someone who's looking to kind of get to where you're at and wanted to kind of take a shortcut or, if you will, cheat code, what are some of the keys to getting to being a published author?
So the biggest thing that I absolutely hate when people come to me and they say, I want to write a book. I'm always like, write it.
Yeah.
Because I mean, what I can of course help you, but when you start from nothing, I can't help you. Like, don't come to me and say, I want to write a book. Have you written anything yet? I'm
Yeah.
like, write it. Do you have the idea? Like, so it's just like figure out your story first, figure out your target market, your target market, and figure out your purpose behind this. Because if you think that you're gonna just like write a book and all of a sudden it's like green eggs and ham and you're rich, that's not what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So it's just like figure it out first, get it written down, and then after that, like I said, I've done so much research for everybody that I'm fine with sharing the research. I've written a few ebooks that helps people with it. Um, so it's like from there, Amazon is probably the best and easiest option for brand new writers. Amazon has something called KDP. And it's probably the best and easiest option when it comes to publishing your work. When it comes to like illustration and things like that, once again, websites like Fiverr or Upwork and things like that. Those are a great thing as well. Just figure out that just know that this is an investment. There is really no easy way. There's no cheat code in order to doing it. It's never going to be 100% perfect the first time around. I just had to redo my whole first book because the first time it was printed, it was awful. Like the writing was fine, but like the pages were cut off. Things just like weren't perfect. I had to redid the whole thing because I was like, if I'm going to sell a product, I need it to be reflect me and reflect quality. So figure it out, but don't wait for the perfect time to do something. Just like get it done.
You said one of the keys was to find the purpose in writing the book. So can you expound a little bit on that? Like, how does a person find their purpose in the book or in the writing process? Or maybe how did you find your purpose for writing those books?
So me finding my purpose, once again, I did not initially realize that my passion was tied to my purpose. I thought that writing was something that I was just going to enjoy and just, do do occasionally and just kind of be done from it. But one quote that I did create that really does help me and like help me solidify my purpose was you're never too young. Oh wait, hold on. I'm gonna look at it just to be sure actually. I created it, but my like I said, my memory sucks. All right, so you're never too young to dream and you're never too old to imagine. So my purpose is to get people to realize that once again, the timing will never be perfect. And you're never too young to start it, and you're never too old to actually finish what you did start or what you thought you couldn't do. So it's like always dream big and go after those dreams. Like don't just be a dreamer, be a doer.
Mm.
So I realized, like I said, I realized that my passion was actually tied to my purpose, which is amazing because once you love what you do, you just do it better. So.
It's true.
Yeah, like someone was talking about me just with my like 9 to 5 job. Like, oh wow, like you make it look so easy. I'm like, I actually love my job. So, and like I said, I know back in the day, Glenn was always like, I'm not working for anybody. I'm my own boss. Like he really did manifest it, and I love that I was around when he was manifesting that because it was super inspiring. But I love my job actually. Like I create content and that's like what I've always kind of wanted to do. I may not be in the industry necessarily that I want to be in, but I have an amazing team and I love what I actually do. So it makes it easier for me to figure out like, oh, at 4 o'clock when I finished, when I logged off from work, like I wasn't drained. I was okay with starting on working on my own, my own business and things like that.
We really appreciate all the information that you dropped on this episode. And I'm sure a lot of people who are going to be aspiring authors will be able to, glean information from what you said and hopefully start their process. Because as you said, the most important thing or that first step is to actually get started.
Like, not, I want to write a book. I'd rather you come to me and say, I'm ready to publish my book. How can you help me? Not, I want to write a book. I'm right here like, write it.
Yeah.
My family always laughs at me like, why did you just tell them that? I'm like, because that's literally the first step. Like, I can't help you write your own story. I can help you edit. I can help you with a publishing. I can help you find an illustrator, but I can't help you write your own story.
Yeah.
And that's important. That's real important. And so for our listeners and our viewers who are looking to either get in contact with you or to purchase one of your books or all of your books, hopefully, let's do it, so we can support Tempest. Like, how can they get in contact with you?
Yes, so I have my website, TempestAisha.com, and you can fill out a subscribe form there. All of my books are available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Walmart, and like Waterstones. There are a few other places you can find them as well. And if you just, type in my name, Tempestt Aisha, Aisha, you can find them there. It's the entire series, and I have 2 affirmation books as well. So everything is available there. You can always email me, tempestaisha@gmail.com. And I'm definitely open to help or assist anyone. My social media pages are open. Stop by.
And before you wrap up, Glenn, I just have one more question, and I'll probably, throw this in earlier in the episode. So this is probably like, asking a parent who their favorite kid is. Do you have a favorite book?
Oh gosh, I do not have. I mean, maybe I do. Maybe Breakfast Surprise is my favorite book. And that's the one I think I spoke about where, they go to crack an egg and a chick comes out. Only because that's probably the only one I've like actually thought about in real life. Like, how does it work? But it's hard actually choosing. So yeah, I guess I'll pick that one if I have to choose.
I was just curious.
Tempest, we just want to thank you, for coming on our show today and sharing your story, your books, and everything like that. For all our listeners out there, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow all our streaming services, and like the comments below.
So Tempest, we want to thank you just once again for being here, and you dropped a lot of good knowledge and a lot of good information. So for our listeners and viewers, go and support her in her endeavors. And we want to thank you guys for listening as well. This has been another episode of the Wolf and the Doctor podcast.
Peace.